So, good evening. Are you a science teacher and in your mind you love to do labs, but at the same time you feel that it's taking way too much time to set them up? Or if sometimes you may feel, well, it's just easier to not do any labs or do simulations. Well, let's see if I can give you some tricks and tricks of the trade on how to make your lab time easier for you. Because I do believe that if you're in science, people need to know if they want to do applied sciences or if they want to be more theoretical. And doing labs is very important. So welcome to this evening. My name is Alain Faber. I've been teaching high school science for 25 years or so, and I'm here to give you my thoughts on that. Let's check to make sure that we have the sound. We have sound, so we are ready to go. Exciting. Okay, so the first topic I have for us is the following: organizing materials and equipment efficiently. Now, keep in mind that when we are doing a lab, especially if we have a class of 25, 30, or 35 students, the big difficulties is always how do we get the equipment together and how do we set up the lab time so that we can maximize the time we have in class, but also minimize the issues as well. And we'll talk today about issues as well as how to manage our prep time to make sure that lab are easier for us. So let's double check. So my first topic about organizing materials and equipment efficiently. At the forefront of any labs, I do believe that teachers have to do some rehearsal of the lab. Now, you're going to say, why do I want to do the lab before, whereas I've done the lab maybe 3, 5, 10, 20 times before? Well, the reason for that is that, first of all, it keeps you involved in doing labs. And as a teacher, I love to see reactions. I like to see circuits. I like to see all the things we need to do. But by doing it before I do it with the class, through rehearsal, gives me a chance to make sure I have all the materials, all the chemicals, all the circuits, everything I need to make sure that my labs are good. And on top of that, I don't have anybody around me to be able to disturb my data collection to see will the lab work or not. And by rehearsing, what happens is it gives you a chance also to try new things. Sometimes you may see something online, you may have a discussion with a teacher, with a colleague of yours, you go to a conference, and what happens is, okay, maybe I'd like to try something different. So by practicing rehearsing before any labs, first of all, it will allow you to play. It will also allow you to see if you want to do any changes and experiment yourself. That, I think, is important. Now, why would rehearsing be important? So first of all, if you want to organize your materials, you need to know what you are using. Now, we have one prep room with 2 labs, and at the same time, we have 10 classes going on for those 2 labs. So that means that we have probably 4 to 6 teachers doing labs in science. So we need to pay attention to who's doing what and when, so we can talk to each other to maximize the material. So that's the first thing. So organizing the materials is very important. Now, by rehearsing your lab, it will also do something fun. First of all, you might notice that it is something that is harder. You might notice that new materials are needed. But at some point, because sometimes I'm clumsy, if something happens, I can remind myself that there are a few things I need to keep in mind with my students. Now, so my goal is always to do a minimum of 1 lab per week. Some of those labs are just to show them the processes, to show them how the scientific investigation process works, the engineering design works, and sometimes it's just for fun. And the reason for that is that the more we do hands-on activities, the easier it is for students to have the confidence to do the lab and be able to get results. Because keep in mind that when I bring my cart to the classroom, the cart is set up for my class, but could be set up for other teachers as well. I might use the same cart for 2 times at the same time. And keeping in mind that the prep time is quite short. And I'm going to talk about prep time later on. So that means that when I bring a cart to the classroom, I am training my students slowly to be able to say, okay, we know what we have to do. We know the materials we need. And it's like a self-serve buffet. They go to the cart and they get the materials you need. Now, because I've rehearsed the lab, I know exactly what I need, and therefore it's all well set up for the students to carry. Now, some of you would say, okay, well, how do students know what to do and what to take, and how can we maximize time? Well, that's a very good question. I do believe that in order for students to know and build their confidence, they need to do more and more what they need to do. But on top of that, in 2025, a lot of students have seen a lot of things online and have seen videos and such. So if it is a lab and hands-on activities they will do, I always do a demo for them. So if we do a lab, either if it's for fun or something that counts, I show them a demo. By showing them a demo, I show them I review with them the procedure, I review with them the materials, and I review with them the steps. Because keep in mind that in order to maximize your time and minimize the issues in the classroom, the best thing is for students to always see the procedure before they go to the lab day. Because by seeing the procedure, they have an understanding of what they need to do. They see the importance of what we're going to do. If they need to have shoes that have closed toes, they need the type of clothes they're using, just to make sure that they come to class ready. And that's important. And if it happens that we have a student that was absent the day of the demo, what happens is that student will not be doing the lab without knowing what to do, because the rest of his teammates or her teammates will show them what to do. And that is quite important. And on top of being able to organize my cart, being able to show my students what lab we're going to do, doing a demo and the equipment, when they come to class, they are ready to do the work. And we have 75 minutes, which is not very long. So that means that when they come to class, they can get the equipment, do the data collection, clean their station, and bring it back to the cart. So this is quite important. Very nice. Good. And I think these are my suggestions on this. Let's see what's the next step for this podcast. Managing prep time. So my second point, managing prep time efficiently. Now, sometimes when we are doing classes, we use our prep time. We're going to go for a little walk. We might talk to colleagues. We might do some marking. We might do some preparation copies for the day after. Now, what I like to do usually when I know I have to rehearse a lab and prep the cart to make sure all the equipment is there, is that I like to do my labs either on a Wednesday or a Thursday. The reason for that is that usually by Monday, Tuesday, I have an idea of what I will do in the week. And then I can plan one of my prep time that's on a Tuesday to plan my Wednesday and or Thursday, do the photocopying that I need for those classes, so I can free up a prep time usually on a Wednesday. Could be a Tuesday as well. And the reason for that is that if I can prepare my classes ahead of time, then I can free up period for rehearsal and get the lab ready. Now, you're going to say, why do I want to do this? Prep time is so precious. It is very true. But keep in mind that as a science teacher, one of the key, I would say not key duty, but the key purpose of having science classes is to give opportunities for students to be able to learn and do hands-on activities. That's why that if you prepare, you rehearse, and you get your cart ready, and you train your students with what to do and when they come to class, they can do the lab, do data collections, and clean their station and all the glassware. So by the time a class is finished, then what happens is that you have everything clean and ready for another class. So some people say, well, I need to, let's say, do more cleaning during my prep time. Don't do cleaning for prep time. Cleaning, you have a class of people, they can do their own cleaning. Every so often I tell them, my mommy, nanny, or granny are not in the class, and therefore I cannot, they're not there for me to help you. And I also tell them sometimes, if you want your mommy, nanny, granny, or if you have your own assistant, bring them to class and they can clean for you. Otherwise, we're all here to clean our own stuff. And you know what? Within the first couple of weeks, everybody knows what they need to do because they know that hands-on activities are there and that they will learn. And in 2025, people are so used to use screen times, videos to see things and understand stuff that they have lost the sometimes not the curiosity, but they have lost some of the dexterity that I know some students used to have 5, 6, or 10 years ago. I see a difference. Now, my students, the first couple of weeks always is tricky, but by the time they go on for week 5, week 10, week 15, they are doing amazing. And they were doing so amazing that usually by the end of the semester, I give them a final project, final lab that they can do. And they can choose their own question, their own idea that they want to test. Now, I have usually by that time, I have a cart with a variety of materials and I make other materials available. All materials they have used in class so that they can test their own question. And I think it makes the activity more authentic. And usually by the time they do that last project, most of them would have out of 15, they'll have 13 out of 15, 14 out of 15, and 15 out of 15. Because by the time we finish a semester doing a lab data collection and reporting, they've done so many of them that it becomes a formality, and I'm there for that. And that is quite good. So let's go, if I can talk about my third topic today. The third topic is about troubleshooting common lab issues. Well, when you do a lab at hands-on activity, there will always be issues. And that's part of learning and part of what we do with hands-on. I tell people always, if you don't want to get a little bruise, get hurt, and not learn anything and not spill anything, then you can always, if you're home, you're on a couch and you're not doing anything, then nothing will happen. However, if you want to explore life, experiment, listen to your curiosity, you have to do a few things. So let's see what are some of the troubleshooting that I can think of. One of them is the materials. So sometimes I have to say that where I work, all the materials is available, but it does happen every so often that I will go to the grocery store or Canadian Tire, and if it is on the list of permissible materials, I will get some of that myself. I have a budget set aside for every month where if I need something for my lab, my students, so we're going to start in a couple of weeks, the electricity unit. I went and got a whole bunch of balloons. They're ready for that because when I look at static electricity, I find that balloons are so much more fun than other equipment, and the learning is always the same. So I do buy materials. Some people say, well, the school has to pay for everything. I do understand. And I've learned that from my colleagues that are at the elementary school. Often elementary school teachers, they do use some of their budget, their own money to buy a few things. And in their mind, it makes their classroom better. So for me, even if I have a little budget, I know that it makes my science classes much better and it's worth it for me. Another one that is happening sometimes is glassware. Now, if you use glassware, beakers and such, there's always one that will break. And if students know that the glassware can break, and that's why we need to have closed-toe shoes and know where the box for the broken glass is, they need to know that broken glass is something that happens. And not to be scared, because if it happens the first time and students just look at each other and they start judging each other, the difficulties is that students at that point don't feel like doing any of the labs. However, if they know that glassware can break and they know that it is a possibility and that we're learning from that, everybody in the class can support each other. And then instead of judging, they say it's part of what is part of it. Now, I have to say that many of in grade 9, for example, my graduated cylinders and some of the equipment I use is in plastic. It's just easier and nothing breaks in that time. But as they go in grade 11 and 12, then they can use the glassware. But in grade 9, you have to be smart as well with the materials you use. So that's very good. And next one, every so often, there are a few students that they tend, especially in grade 9, they like to move around. It's like they are in the schoolyard and it's hard for them to stay put. They move around when they are pouring something. It feels like they, they've never cooked, they've never done the activities, and they can be clumsy. So what happens during that time is that as we go throughout the semester, I give them a chance to practice. However, when I am to do a lab that is maybe more dangerous, using some chemicals that could be trickier, using the Bunsen burner when there's an open flame. What happens then is that I give a chance to the students to do the lab, but then I will just say, please come to the front, we'll do the lab together. So what happens, I have stations in my lab, and the teacher desk has electricity, also has a place for Bunsen burner, there's a sink, so that's beautiful. So what happens is that I don't make the students feel that I need to pay attention because it's hard for them. I tell them that you're doing at the front because you have the opportunity to be able to do the activity with me so I can show them some tricks. And what happens is that the students don't feel that they are in having a special case. I get a few friends of his as well. And then what I do is that I give them a chance to see a demo, and then I give them a chance to do it as well. Now, because they are close to me, they usually behave a little bit because then they know that I'm a bit closer, because proximity makes a big difference. And let's see, what is the other one I wanted to say? There's last semester, there was a student that sometimes it was a bit trickier, especially with dexterity and focusing. And I know that for the final performance task, just before we started, so okay, I told them, we had a chat saying, I know that he likes to move around, but that I was trusting them that he will focus to make sure that he and his teammate would stay safe and be able to get the data. And you know what? He just, it's as if he felt that I trusted him to take care in the lab. It made a big difference. Now, as soon as the lab was done, then he went around, and that was okay. But at that point, he and the other students were safe, and that made a difference. And we have Coach Mary. Coach Mary, nice to see you tonight. Well, I like to share my ideas, and some of those is through ups and downs, because many of the issues that I'm sharing today, organizing materials, I know my first year as a teacher were tricky. With respect to managing my prep time, there was years at the beginning where I felt there was no time, and therefore it was just easier to do no labs. Nowadays, I've learned through that. And troubleshooting common lab issues, I've learned that if you plan ahead a little bit, it does help a lot. Now, just to add the troubleshooting common lab issues, what's interesting with lab, you have to keep in mind that if you over prepare, then you can think of the worst case scenarios, and then you can plan a little bit ahead so that when you come to class, the chances are that your worst case scenario will never happen. And if in your mind you have possible worst case scenarios, you're a lot more alert for the possibilities of ups and downs and trouble that could happen in a class. And I think that over preparing is so much better. It's the difference between, for example, knowing something and just saying, well, I'm going to just wing it. Or you do something where you say, well, I know enough that I'll be able to help, or to be in a place where if you rehearse your lab, then you're in a zone of mastery, and therefore it's so much easier to help others. So Coach Mary, let's see, your students are in awesome hands. I do think so, even though ever so often there's been times where if something happens and I don't trust a group, I've done simulations and I've just shown videos. But I've learned that if you do too much of that, the students never learn. And it's important for them to learn the hands-on, because there's some students that will go in the future, let's say for the pure sciences in university, in physics, chemistry, or biology. but you have all the engineers that are doing applied sciences. They need to have done something with their hands. You've got people that are going to college that they need to have done the different hands-on activities so that they know, okay, do I prefer to do the hands-on activity or do I prefer to reflect on it? Difference between college and universities. And then it helps also for students that just say, you know what, I just want to get my hands dirty and learn and do stuff. And that's why some people, they finish high school and then they end up electricians. They end up with doing all work right away with apprenticeship. And you know what? They are contributing to the world in their own ways. And that's amazing. And these are the points. Let's see if I've done. So I've talked about this one. This one that is good. I think I have completed all these things. Perfect. So my conclusion today, if you're a science teacher, focusing on doing labs is a must. You need to train your students to feel comfortable with the materials so that you can being more hands-off and then they become hands-on. With respect to the different topics I've got here, organizing materials and equipment efficiently, you have to rehearse every single lab you do beforehand. It just reminds you of what you need to do, and then you can think of the worst case scenario so you can be over prepared for your lab. You know what? I've been teaching science for 25 years and I still rehearse all my labs. And some of my colleagues sometimes say, well, why do you do that? You've done it so many times. Well, it's because I enjoy doing the lab. And by enjoying doing them, my students see that and they enjoy doing that as well. Second part was about managing prep time. We don't have much time in a day. So if you can plan ahead the day before to do all the preparing for the following day and do all the copying. So what happens is that you have your prep time to be able to focus on the rehearsal and organizing your lab setup. And third, troubleshooting common lab issues. There will always be lab issues. Keeping in mind that if you are over prepared and you have in mind what could be the worst case scenarios, you can see them coming and therefore you can prevent most of those, if not all of them, during lab time. So on this is the information I have for you today. Coach Ma, thank you very much for coming along and contributing to the podcast today. I always enjoy hearing from you, and I hope that you're going to have an amazing day. So we have Just Being Curious. Do you integrate AI in your classes? Oh, that's a good question. I've been looking at AI for many months now, and even though I do enjoy AI, sometimes I use it for ideas of what I can bring in a class. I use very little AI in my classes. Not because I see a difference between AI and technology and science. There's two different things. You can use technology in science, and you can use science. I see a big difference. It's an interesting thing. So last year, I spent more time with computers. I spend more time with AI, using it in the classroom, suggesting the students, well, you can use it for research. You can use it to find some ideas. You can use it to better define your thoughts. However, I realized that my students were spending a lot more time playing, using AI. But what happens is that when students are using AI too much or they rely on it, I realize that sometimes it goes against, I find, their building their confidence. Because instead of having an idea, thinking about it and believing in their ideas, then they say, well, I'm going to ask AI, or they give their power away and asking AI for confirmation or to tell them what to do. And I find that in science, it was hindering their learning. Now, that's my own opinion. I know a lot of teachers are using it often, but I realize that my job as a science teacher, I've realized, is to give opportunities for students to build confidence, build skills, and make sure that they have their ideas and maintain their curiosity. And when you're using computers and AI, I find that their communication is with the students and the AI or the computer, and much less with the classroom environment. And so for the last 3 semesters, I've been focusing a lot more on being present in the classroom. So on people that have the computer on, it is only maybe 10% of my students, some people that feel they need it all the time, or students that sometimes they need the computer to work better. Otherwise, I do promote a lot more focusing on curiosity, focusing on communication between classmates, doing hands-on activities to build their confidence that way, so that we can talk about science for science. Now, I'm not saying AI is not good. It has its place, but I find that in grade 9 this semester, they do need a lot more the hands-on, being able to talk to each other. Because I walk in hallways sometimes, and they have several students, regardless of the grade 9, 10, 11, and 12, they're side by side on their phone, not discussing. And I don't think that is what's best for them. Now, I have to say that in the first couple of weeks, my students are saying, well, why do we have chart paper? Why do we have to take notes? Why do we have to do graphic organizers using hands? I even do my evaluations on paper. They say, oh, my hand is hurting and such. However, when I do that, the answers are much better. And then we can also talk about it a lot more. This is my perspective on that. But when we're looking for ideas, for example, when we're looking for examples, I do allow them to use it. So let's see. Coach Moss says, many thanks for your insights. You're welcome. As I said, that's my opinion, and that's how I do things. And I think it's better to build their confidence first. I do agree 100%, because you have to think that an AI is a construct, and therefore they want to use the AI as a tool and not AI as something to confirm their ideas. It should be the other way around, because sometimes they may not have a computer. If you want to maintain curiosity, you don't want to be on a screen with your eyes focusing on little things, but you want to be able to open up and see your environment. So on this, thank you very much, Coach Ma. Excellent question to conclude this podcast tonight. On this, have an amazing evening, and I'll see everybody next Wednesday. Take care. Bye-bye. And Coach Ma, have an amazing day as well. Take care. Take care. Let's see. We are ready. Take care.